In the last video, we showed how you could use the internal exec command as part of your custom build target to be able to take some action and still run a build. The caveat to that is if you're running a long-running build process, you lose the ability to cancel the build. So in today's video, let's show you how to get that back. Hello, fellow Sublime Text fanatics. Nerd here. Welcome to this video on canceling a custom build target. Before we get started, this is a reminder, if you're finding these videos useful or helpful in any way whatsoever, please share, thumb, and subscribe as you deem appropriate using those buttons down below the video here. And if you have any questions or comments on this video, any of my videos, or topics for other videos you'd like me to cover, you can go ahead and drop those in the comment section below or hit me on Twitter at OdatNerd. Now, we were talking last week about using a custom build target in order to execute a build. And in particular, we were using this confirm exec command, which allows you to be prompted if you want to execute the command or not before it actually starts the build. Now, the problem with this, as we showed in the previous video, is once you start the build running, you can't stop it. You have to let it run to completion on its own. And remember, you can cancel builds by going to the Tools Cancel Build item in the menu, which is disabled when there's not a current build running or Sublime doesn't know how to cancel one. Or it's also available from the command palette as well. And we saw that because we're using a custom target here, the confirm exec command, we're telling Sublime, don't do what you would normally do, run this command to execute the build. And Sublime does that, but it then is unable to cancel the actual build that's running because it doesn't know how to do that. We haven't told it. And as it turns out, that is actually a fairly simple thing to do. There is a key we can add to the build file here underneath target called cancel, like so. And there are a couple of different ways to use this particular value. The first thing you can do is provide a string here that will be a command that it should run in order to cancel the actual build. So what we could actually do here is say something like cancel confirm exec. Like so, save the build, and then come over to confirm exec and add a new command, cancel confirm exec, which as we can see, just very simply takes any argument you give it and runs the exec command with the argument kill true, which tells the internal exec command to stop the running build. And we go ahead and save that plugin. And now when we come back to our exceptionally long running program, we can see that I'll hit build. I'll say I do want to run the build. It's now running. If I go up to the tools menu, I see it actually says cancel build and I can cancel the build now. So that is just as easy as that. Now, in fact, there's another way to use this because this is somewhat cumbersome, we might say. We have to define one command that knows how to start the build and then another one that knows how to stop it, which if you were actually doing something completely customized is perhaps a nice way to go. But what if we just wanted to do this with one command? How could we do that? And the answer to that is we could actually do that fairly simply. I'm going to undo this to remove that command and bring it back to the way it looked before. Now, what we can actually do is come over here to the build system, and there's another way to use cancel. Instead of providing a string such as this, we can actually provide a JSON object. And inside that JSON object, we can add whatever arguments we want. And this tells Sublime that whenever it wants to cancel a build, it should use the target command. And in addition to all the rest of the contents of the build file, it should also use the contents of the cancel key as additional arguments to the command. And we already know that our confirm exec is using exec to run the build and that you can pass it an argument of kill with the value of true to kill the build. So we can just simply say kill true here, like so. and save this build. And now over here with just the one command, we can still say we want to run the build, and we can come up to the menu here and say we want to cancel the build. And it's asking if we want to proceed, so we have to say yes, and it's canceled. But we can fix that. If we were to come back over to our plugin here, we know that this command will be executed with all of the contents of the build, and that when the build is about to be canceled, it gets that extra argument of kill. So, similar to line 7, where we grab the caption that we should use, we can go ahead and paste in a line like this. Now here we can use get instead of pop because we want to leave that kill argument in the arguments dictionary. So this is grabbing the value of kill with a default value of false. So if it's not present in the build, the default value is false. And now here on this, we can say if kill or yes, no, cancel. Which tells this, because Python is one of those languages that uses short circuit Boolean evaluation, if you've told it to kill the build, as soon as it finds that out, it doesn't have to bother asking you the question anymore. It already knows the answer to the if is true, and it can go ahead and run the command with the arguments, which means we can come over here and run our build and say we want to build it. And if we go up into the menu and say we want to cancel the build, it just immediately cancels, which is what we want to have happen. Now there's one more thing to note here, and that is we can see there's not a build currently running, and yet when I come up to the menu and say cancel build, it's still enabled even though there's not a build currently running. And it doesn't actually do anything because there's nothing to actually cancel. But as we saw before we added the custom target in a previous video, the cancel command is actually grayed out when there's not a build actually running. And if you want that sort of functionality, that is also theoretically easy to do. What we could do is add an isEnabled method to our class. Now Sublime will invoke that method with the arguments that it would normally give the command and ask the command, should you be enabled in this situation or not? And our command could say, yes, there is a build currently running, so we are enabled, cancel us, or no, there's not a build running, disable us. We can't do that here because we're not the ones that's actually running the build. It's actually the exec command running it on our behalf. So we can't tell if the build is actually running or not. And we can actually solve that if we want by using a little bit of a more advanced template for being able to add your own code. And you might want to also use that if you want to take some action after the build is finished, which is we currently can't detect. So let's cover that, but we'll do that in another video. So there we have the very simple method of canceling a running build. If you're using the target key to specify a command to run, Sublime won't allow you to cancel builds by default, but you can use the cancel key in your Sublime build and provide it either the name of an alternative command to execute to cancel a build when it's running, or use a JSON object, and the value of that will be added to the arguments that the target command gets when the build is told to be canceled, so that that command knows that it should be canceling the build instead of launching it. In next week's video, we'll go into the more advanced way to piggyback on the exec command's ability to execute full code for us, while also gaining the ability to disable the cancel command in the main menu if we want to, and most importantly, being able to detect when the build is actually done running in case you want to do something like that. Until then, remember, if you have any questions or comments on this video or any of my videos, or suggestions for other video topics you'd like me to cover, drop those down in the comment section below. Hit me on Twitter at ODATNerd, and use those buttons down below to thumb and subscribe as you deem appropriate. If you're finding these videos helpful or useful in any way, I'd love to know about it. Until that next video, this is ODATNerd asking you to please have a sublime day.